Thank you for joining us today for our exciting webinar on revenue management. I'm just going to give people a minute or two to get logged on, and we'll get started. Thank you for joining us. Good morning to those in the West, and good afternoon to those in the East. My name's Carrie Brock. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at RoomKey PMS. Today's webinar will be 1 hour. You'll be muted throughout this webinar, and if you have any questions for us, you can type them in the chat feature. And we're going to save about 15 minutes at the end of the broadcast to answer as many questions as we can. For those questions that we don't get to, we'll be responding following the webinar. And if you would like to schedule a demo of RoomKey and iRates, you can contact our sales team via email at sales@roomkeypms.com, or you can also dial our 1-800 number, which is 1-800-234-5695. So just to introduce, for those of you who are new to RoomKey, and those of you who are customers, we're a cloud-based PMS system. We've been in business for over 30 years and over 12 years in the cloud. We were one of the first. Hopefully you can all see my screen now. I apologize for that. We're a publicly traded company. We have over 60,000 rooms that are managed by RoomKey, and our goal is to help our properties and our customers manage the guest life cycle. What's new at RoomKey? We'll be at High Tech this year. Our booth number is 145. Next week we'll be launching a new website which will contain even more information regarding revenue management. And today is our pleasure to introduce our newest partner, iRates. Who iRates is they're our preferred partner for revenue management. They offer a best-in-class revenue management product at a very affordable price. It's extremely efficient, inexpensive, and easy to use. And you'll be able to adapt any type of property and use it in conjunction with the revenue management that you have at your property. Our speaker today is Ira Vuk. She's the Vice President of Business Development and the co-founder of iRates. She's been awarded the top 5 revenue managers in 2013 by Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association International. She has a master's in sociology and an MBA, 10 years of hospitality revenue management experience, and I'm sure you'll find her presentation today very interesting and very insightful. And so I thank you all for attending, and I will turn it over now to Ira.
Okay, hello everyone. Let me start the slideshow. Good day, thank you very much for joining us today. And as Terry already mentioned, I represent the company iRates. And this is a revenue management system company, and the great news that Carrie already shared with you recently is that now this revenue management system is integrated with RoomKey PMS and is available to all RoomKey PMS customers. So that's really great, and you can contact RoomKey to inquire more information about the system and get a demo. So today we will talk about the key indicators for success in revenue management and the power of revenue management automation. Let me switch to the slide. So the agenda for today will be the following. First, we'll go through the introduction, and we'll talk about why revenue needs to be managed. We will go through the basic terminology. We'll talk about RevPAR versus adjusted RevPAR. We'll use a few examples so you better understand. And these two statistics and the most efficient concept in revenue management that is widely used right now in hospitality industry. And then we will finish with a few words about automation in revenue management. So why revenue needs to be managed? It seems like a rhetorical question, but really not everybody realizes the necessity and importance of managing revenues, surprisingly, and paying enough attention to these tasks. Today, hospitality market presents a high level of uncertainty. What customer flow to expect and what price expectations will they have? What will competitors implement today, tomorrow, and every day in the future? How will future events affect revenues, for example, changes in gas prices or airfares or construction next door? Thus, the demand is constantly changing. It's dynamic because the market is not standing still. Besides, now customers are equipped with a wide range of tools that help them navigate in the market of hotel rooms and find deals that don't always contribute to the hotel's revenue growth. For example, numerous OTA and aggregator websites allowing customers to compare room rates, discounted off-peak websites, mobile apps, and whatnot. So in order to be able to respond to this challenge and not get lost in constantly changing market conditions, every single hotel needs to realize the necessity of adequate daily revenue management. Revenue management goes beyond calculations in formulas. It involves analysis, evaluation, and strategy. It's a science, but it's also an art that one develops and perfects through experience. The main goal of revenue management is to sell the right product to the right customer at the right time and for the right price. Happy hotelier. If we do this, we'll of course increase our revenues, and I'll explain you in the following slides how exactly we should do this. So let's go through some basic terms which I'm sure most of you are familiar with, but let's just go through them quickly. So the main indexes used in the revenue management science, first is occupancy, percentage of all rental units in the hotel that is occupied at any given time. The next one is ADR, average daily rate, average rental income per occupied room in any given time period. Sometimes a hotel's productivity is evaluated based on one of the indexes mentioned above, and more often occupancy. Unfortunately, this limited analysis doesn't reflect the complexity of the relationship between these two indexes and the sales volumes that they generate. So revenue management introduced a more accurate index of measurement, RevPAR, which combines the two, occupancy and ADR, in one statistic. RevPAR, revenue per available room, is often used to measure hotels' productivity and also to compare different properties within a market. It can be calculated in a few different ways, but most often it's calculated as ADR times occupancy. RevPAR allows to obtain a more accurate and broad picture of hotel's performance and also compare the results with competitors in your market. It's also recommended that a hotel is signed up to receive monthly Smith Travel Research reports, so-called STAR reports, that display the property's performance comparing to other hotels in the market. If you're not signed up yet, I would recommend that you do, because it gives you a very good idea, a clear picture of how your hotel is performing in the market, and that's assuming that you select the correct competitive set. So let's talk about something else, something that you probably never heard before, and will open your eyes on the revenue management and the strategy that you should select for your hotel. So we just discussed RevPAR index. Let's look at it in action. So let's use an example. For clarity, we'll look at two extreme scenarios. Let's imagine there is a hotel that has 100 rooms. Scenario 1, 100 rooms sold at $10 each. Revenue generated was $1,000, and RevPAR is $10. Scenario 2, 10 rooms sold at $100 each. Revenue is the same $1,000, RevPAR is the same $10. So question, if RevPAR is the same in both cases, then why do we have a feeling that scenario 2 is much more profitable for the hotel? Well, unfortunately, as you see, RevPAR is also not the most perfect index, regardless of the widely spread opinion in the hotel industry. This statistic does not objectively reflect the performance and profitability of your hotel, and particular revenue management techniques that you implement due to the following. It does not take CPOR, cost per occupied room, into account. Those are variable expenses that you incur when rooms are occupied. Also does not take into consideration any additional income a hotel may have from other revenue-generating departments. For example, restaurants, meeting space, banquet rooms, casinos, parking, spa, etc., etc., etc. So there is one more index, more accurate and objective, adjusted RevPAR. This index, like RevPAR, can be calculated in a few different ways depending on what measurements you want to use in your calculations. And here are a few formulas, and they look very complicated, so you don't have to memorize them right now. You don't have to try to read and understand. You will receive a recording of this webinar later if you want to refer to these formulas. But the simplest way to express the adjusted RevPAR formula is the following. ADR minus cost per occupied room plus additional revenue per room times occupancy. So if you remember, RevPAR was calculated as ADR times occupancy. So in this formula, we can see that we just added two more variables. We added variable expenses and variable additional revenues. And we take this into account and multiply that by occupancy instead of just multiplying ADR. So let's apply this formula to the above-mentioned scenarios. For simplicity of calculation, let's assume that a hotel doesn't have any additional revenue-generating departments, and cost per occupied room, the variable expenses, is equal to $8 per occupied room. So scenario 1, the same 100-room hotel. 100 rooms sold at $10 each, as in the scenario 1 we discussed earlier. Revenue is $1,000, RevPAR is $10. So let's calculate adjusted RevPAR. $10 minus CPOR, which was $8 as we agreed, equals $2. Profit is $2 times 100 rooms sold equals $200. Now scenario 2, 10 rooms sold at $100 each, revenue is the same $1,000, RevPAR is the same $10. Adjusted RevPAR, however, is 100 minus 8, $92. Significantly more than in the first case. And profit is $920. We can see that we just made $720 more to the bottom line just because we selected a different strategy. Even though our RevPAR is equal in the two scenarios, we made much more money in scenario number 2. So this is why from the very beginning it was clear that the second scenario is much more profitable for the hotel. Thus we can see that RevPAR really doesn't give us any information about the real profitability, while adjusted RevPAR is a clear reflection of the bottom line profits. It can be calculated fairly easy actually as soon as you measure your as well as average additional income per room from other revenue generating departments if you have any. So normally limited service middle tier hotels, they don't have significant additional revenue generating departments, so you would probably only use cost per occupied room in calculations of the adjusted RevPAR. And normally for a 2-3-star hotel, the CPOR would be somewhere between $10 and $15. So concentrations on RevPAR only can lead to great revenue losses, as you can see, if you select your strategy incorrectly, if you only look at the RevPAR. But if you set adjusted RevPAR maximization as your main goal, this tactic will lead to increase in the bottom line profits and not to seeming increase of the hotel's productivity through the revenue growth, while final profit can be drastically decreasing. RevPAR growth does not always equal to profit growth. That's something that you probably never realized, but yes, it's true. RevPAR growth does not always equal to profit growth. But at the same time, adjusted RevPAR growth will always involve growth in your RevPAR index. Thus, adjusted RevPAR is the index that has to be used as a goal for profit maximization because it reflects the profit, which a revenue manager is directly responsible for. So looking at these different formulas, it's probably, if you're not using any revenue management automated solutions, it's probably hard to understand how exactly you would plan your strategy to make sure that you are indeed taking into account adjusted RevPAR and concentrated on increasing your bottom line rather than just RevPAR. So the easiest way would be to make sure, as long as you understand one concept, that you should not sell the rooms and increase your occupancy just for the sake of increasing the occupancy. You need to make sure that you sell at the highest possible price, and the target should not be 100% occupancy. The target should not be sell out. The target should be to sell as many rooms as you can for the highest possible price. You shouldn't be discounting just for the sake of discounting. And a simple glance at your STAR report will help you understand whether your strategy is correct. And let me show you a few examples. Let's look at this STAR report right here. You should be able to see this on the screen. And you can see that it's the first page of the STAR report. It shows the occupancy index, your ADR index, and the resulting RevPAR index. So these two indexes, occupancy, the index called MPI, ADR index called ARI, these two indexes will let you know whether you're balanced. As you see, occupancy index in this case is much higher than the ADR, even though RevPAR is about 100%. The resulting RevPAR is, we're getting our market share, we think we're happy, but this tells us that our indexes are not in balance. Our occupancy is much higher than ADR, and it shouldn't be like that. You don't want to see this on your STAR report. What you do want to see is something like this. Both indexes are about the same, your resulting RevPAR. As long as your indexes are in balance, you've selected the right strategy. So let's go back to our presentation. So the next item we'll talk about is competitors. For correct understanding of the hotel's position in the market, it's important to be aware of the rates that your competitors are charging for any given day in the future. What I have to mention here that it does not mean that you have to blindly follow their prices, especially if you use any type of automated tools of demand forecast and data analysis. Your competitors are not always best kids in class and don't always adequately react to the changes in the demand. So you don't need to be following their rates blindly without taking into account all other parameters, the real demand fluctuations going into your the demand flow going into your property. Still, it doesn't eliminate the need to be aware of their rates in order to have a clear understanding of what is going on in your market and how you're positioned in it. There are a few ways to obtain CompStat information. Manual methods that I'm sure most of you are familiar with. Call around. How many of you have made your front desk call other hotels in the area, try to find out what their occupancy and daily rate is? We all know that this is not reliable. This is time-consuming, and not everybody tells the truth. And in most cases, they wouldn't tell you the truth. So this information is very unreliable. I definitely would not recommend using this method. Manually checking for CompStat rates on OTA websites. Time-consuming and not always accurate either. There are automated tools. There is different subscriptions, different services you can subscribe on a monthly basis. TravelClick, Rubicon Reports, Rate Tiger, RevPaster, RateGain. There are different other ones, and I would recommend that you save your time and make your life easier. Subscribe to one of these, and they're not very expensive, and they definitely will save you a lot of time, and they will provide you accurate information about the CompStat prices. Let's talk about dynamic pricing concept. Effective revenue management requires a lot of planning and forecasting. In order to be successful, it's necessary to be able to estimate approximate demand level for every day in the future, at least 365 days ahead. However, setting your room rates for next year does not necessarily mean that these rates will remain the same until that day comes. So one of the biggest advantages of dynamic pricing concept is an ability to adjust to the real demand fluctuations, even if your initial forecast was inaccurate. If you remember in the very first slide, we talked about the demand that's constantly changing. The current market conditions dictate that we have to constantly adapt to these changing demand conditions. We have to react properly in order for us to be able to efficiently manage our hotel and increase our revenues, increase our profits. So today's market presents a lot of uncertainties for hoteliers, and demand is constantly fluctuating. Every day managers face a difficult problem to be able to quickly and adequately adapt to these changing conditions and not to miss opportunities for growing hotel revenues. So what exactly is dynamic pricing? Revenue management is based on supply and demand. If you're familiar with this basic concept of supply and demand, you will understand that prices tend to rise when demand exceeds supply, and conversely, prices tend to fall when supply exceeds demand. So proper pricing adjustments, which take existing demand into account and can even influence it, are the key to increased profitability. This is the key to the dynamic pricing concept. The hotel industry is now devoted to developing new forecasting techniques that enable it to respond to changes in supply and demand with optimal room rates. So the key is so the hotel industry's focus has finally starting to shift from high volume bookings to high profit bookings. If you remember, as we discussed earlier, in the past, hoteliers were concentrated on managing, on increasing occupancy. Let's see, I hope you can hear me well enough. Sorry, one moment. Just want to make sure that you can all hear me. I know there's some issues probably with my microphone. Okay, looks like we're back. So back to our presentation, back to our slide. Okay, great. We can see that, as we discussed earlier, previously, how many hoteliers, and still many hoteliers, are concentrating on increasing occupancy without paying attention to other important parameters. At least ADR is one second important parameter, and RevPAR, without concentrating on the maximizing final profits. Bottom line, hoteliers assure that we are concentrating on profits. Cutting out again. What do I do? Let's see. I'm back. Okay. So it's very important to concentrate on the profits, and the way we do it is that we need to make sure that we efficiently react to the changes in the demand by setting the correct price for any given day in the future. Equilibrium price here that you will find here in the intersection of supply and demand. So in general, obviously the basic concept is that room rates should be increased when demand is strong in order to capitalize on ADR, and lowered when demand is weak in order to increase occupancy. So from volume to profit. And as we all know, a hotel room is a perishable product. One day later it's gone and you cannot resell it. This is why it's very important to correctly react to demand fluctuations and follow your booking pace. Select the right strategy and act accordingly. So, revenue management is all about predictions and decisions. Predictions about how much and what type of business to expect, and the subsequent decisions a manager makes to get the most revenue and profit from that business through dynamic pricing, as we just discussed. The slogan, "Sell to the right customer at the right time for the right price," sounds relatively simple, but it's not easy to be achieved. How do we find out when that right time is, what that right price is, and what type of the right customer we are talking about? Management decisions, pricing, and others are based on analysis of vast amounts of information about booking pace, about set rates, hotels' parameters, and specifics, and others. Although the individual tasks of revenue management can be performed manually, the most efficient way to handle data and generate profits is through revenue management software, revenue management systems. That's why many hoteliers choose to employ specialized computer programs dedicated to revenue management automation. Today, thanks to great achievements in computer technology and computer networks, automated revenue management has become available for low and mid-tier hotels, small hotel chains, and independent properties. Along with that, the effectiveness of dynamic pricing has also increased. Computer revenue management programs analyze large amounts of information about booking pace, historic reservation data, comp set pricing, etc., etc., etc. These programs are normally based on sophisticated algorithms of modeling, forecasting, and optimization. Some systems include elements of artificial intelligence and methods of adaptation, customization to the hotel's specific characteristics. The use of such programs leads to increased revenues and eliminating significant errors in pricing decisions. So, using an automated revenue management system, RMS, can lead to around 10% revenue increase in general and much higher in different cases. It really depends on the increase after employing a revenue management system depends on what tactics, what strategy you were using before you started using an RMS, and how often, how diligent you are in using it when it's installed for you. For hotels that spend their time on manual management, an RMS system will allow to optimize labor, lower payroll expenses of course, and eliminate significant errors in pricing decisions, especially in the conditions of economic instability. Such systems allow managers to save time on routine analytical tasks and concentrate on more important strategic decisions. All of the above, along with increased revenues and profits, as well as stabilization of results, makes managers' lives easier, increases their productivity, and helps grow revenues more significantly. Applying computer programs to revenue management in hotel business is now widely spread in the United States and European market. And as we mentioned earlier, iRates revenue management software is now available for RoomKey PMS customers, and it's integrated, so you can obtain more information about the system through your RoomKey contact people. Thank you very much for listening in. Again, my name is Ira Vogue, and I represent the company iRates. So now we'll move to the next session, question and answers. And we will have, as Carrie mentioned in the beginning, we'll have a limited time, 10-15 minutes, I assume, or maybe even 20 minutes to answer your questions. If there is anything that I wasn't able to answer for you, or if you have additional questions, if you can think of something later, you can always send an email to sales@RoomKey PMS, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. So, Nev, Carrie, do we have any questions that
Hi,
are
can
coming
you
in?
hear me?
Yes.
Great. So one question I had, Ira, from one of the people listening to the webinar today was, does this work for a small hotel, like less than 50 rooms, or is this a product that's geared towards larger properties?
No, the product, iRates RMS product, was specifically actually designed for limited service, lower tier or middle tier properties or upper middle tier as well. For properties that are not significant, not very large in size, and they don't have a lot of resources to run revenue management themselves, the product is very simple to use because it.
First one is, how would it work if you have two locations in the same town or city?
It will work perfectly well. I actually am managing a few hotels myself, and I'm using iRates to manage them. And two of my hotels are right next to each other, about 1 block away. iRates does not make these hotels competitive to each other. iRates will help both of these hotels make the most from the revenue potential that from that demand flow that's going into this property. And demand flow is always unique for each property because each hotel has their own characteristics in terms of the star rating, the offering. Maybe one is a little bit closer to some attraction than the other one is. One is targeted towards business, and the other one is towards leisure traveler, for example. So each property is unique, and iRates is really, because again it's customized and adapted to each specific property when it's installed, it helps each individual hotel using its own peculiarities and specifics to obtain the highest potential revenue from the use of the program. So it won't, these two hotels will not interfere with each other.
Okay, great, thank you. Next question, does the product contain a report on MPI and comp set?
No, the product does not, because this is part of the STAR report that is STR company, Smith Travel Research Company, is publishing, and this product, the STAR report, is available for hotels to sign up. They charge money for that, and so we cannot steal their business. We're not including this into our program, so that has to be purchased separately.
Okay.
From STR.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does this also factor in a minimum night stay?
Correct. Yes, it does. That's a great question. The program does take into account minimum night length of stay close to arrivals. It also suggests these stay restrictions. It suggests for any particular day in the future whether these restrictions need to be set or not, or released.
Okay. Here's a question about how does it integrate with RoomKey, and does it adjust rates automatically?
I think that will be a question for Carrie, probably better. Carrie, are you aware of the current integration? There is an integration for sure one way, I know, and we're working on the two-way interface, right?
Exactly. The interface is actually going to be done in 2 phases. So perhaps what we'll do is for the interface, I might I'll get one of our technical people to circle back to that question at the end. But the second part of this question was, does it adjust rates automatically? Not just one way at the moment. So in the future it will automatically adjust them. Okay, I'm getting the nod from the technical folks. So yes, that will be in the phase 2. Great.
Great.
So the next question is, how exactly are the price adjustments implemented relative to rack rates? And will a customer searching via an OTA see the original price and a discount? And the third part to this, how do OTA-specific promotions fit into all of this?
Okay, that's also a great question. So first of all, everything that hotel has been selling to, all the channels, OTAs, all the promotions, we analyze all this information before we install iRates. So all this is taken into account. All your existing promotions remain the same. All the channels remain the same. What iRates does is it recommends the rack rate. So it recommends the rack rate fluctuations for you to make sure that you are optimally priced according to the demand. And then all your promotions, all your rate plans are calculated off of that rack price that you will be calculating. So if you if you have a promo running on Expedia or other OTAs that's stay 2 nights, get 10% off of rec, you will still have that same promo with just one change, that your rec will be set according to the demand. Your rec price will be optimal, and then all your other promos will be calculated based off of that rec price.
Okay, great, thank you. There's a question here regarding the cost of iRates software. I can't specifically say exactly because it's going to be based on the size of the property or the number of properties you have, but I can say it is priced out the same way RoomKey is, so on a per room per month basis. And we can certainly, if you want to contact the sales department, we can provide you with a proposal. But you will find that it is one of the best price systems available. So thanks for that question. Next one is, we utilize the yield management system within RoomKey, which is based on occupancy. How much increase could we see with a third-party RMS?
I assume third-party RMS would be iRates in this case.
iRates, yeah.
Right. So I recently published an article about why it's not very efficient and wise to use occupancy to make pricing decisions. Using occupancy in your revenue management decisions, only occupancy can actually lead to some revenue loss in a few cases. So you do need to take into account at least the one parameter, which is how many days out you're looking at. So 70% occupancy tomorrow is very different from 70% occupancy 90 days from now. So your strategy will be different. Also, in addition to that, you need to take into account your booking pace. So if you're looking at a 70% occupancy this Friday, 3 days from now, and you have been booking for that day very steadily, increasing your occupancy 5% a day, that's one case. Or if your occupancy has been decreasing and it was 73% and now it dropped to 70, that's a different scenario. So you do need to take into account your booking pace in addition to occupancy. RMS, like ours, iRates, does take all this into account. Not at all, because again, what iRates does, it recommends fluctuating the rec rate. Everything else that you've had before will remain the same. All your contracts with your OTAs, all your promotions that you're running, everything else, all your rate plans, all your values of the rate plans in terms of how many % off a particular rate plan is, all this remain the same. What iRates does, it recommends how to fluctuate your rec rate, and then everything else fluctuate together with it, calculated off of your adjusted rec price.
Great, thanks. One thing I should mention, you mentioned the article you just recently wrote. That'll be on the RoomKey blog by the end of today, so if anybody wants to read that, it'll be available. Next question was, does it apply on all channels?
Not sure what the question is about, what applies, but again, as I mentioned,
iRates, I guess, does iRates apply on all the different distribution channels a hotel might have, so beyond the OTAs, other?
Right. Yes, as I mentioned, iRates helps you fluctuate the rec price, so everything remains the same. Whatever channels you've had in the past will remain the same. So whether it's OTA, whether it's CRS, direct bookings, everything that you sell at your hotel dances off of the rec price. So you will be fluctuating your rec price correctly, and all the other channels will be then adjusted based on this, on the fluctuating rec price. That will be more optimal if you use an RMS.
Okay. Next question is, how does iRates handle or affect negotiated rates?
It is taken into account when we build demand patterns for the hotel, when we customize the program for a specific hotel. So we do analyze all your booking history. We learn about the reservations that you've sold before, all about your special prices that you offered to your account previously. It is taken into account, and these prices will remain the same again because there is a particular rate code that is responsible for this particular account, and the value that this rate code has will also remain the same. So fluctuating the rec price will not affect your negotiated rate plan. If you have an agreement with a particular company to sell your rooms at $79, but your rec price is fluctuating, from $100 to $150 to $200, your negotiated price will remain the same. However, what iRates will do is it will suggest to close the channels that are least profitable. So if you have channels that are deeply discounted, and if it's not profitable for you to sell, for example, on 4th of July, we don't want to sell to everybody. We want to sell only to those that are paying the most, because we know that demand is strong and we can afford selling at rec price only. iRates will make this suggestion and will tell you that you can afford closing other channels that are not that are least profitable, and you can sell only through rec or maybe 10-15% off channels. So iRates will make that suggestion. It will be up to you whether you want to accept it or not.
Great, thanks. And further to that, does it also work on packages?
Again, the answer would be the same as previously. Your packages will also remain, well, it really depends on how your packages are set up. If you have a particular rate code that is responsible for your packages, let's say you're running a a package deal, I don't know, a restaurant and a room, and this is your rec price plus $20, let's say. So again, this package will remain the same with just one change, that your rec price will be different. So if your packages are calculated based off of rec price, they will also be fluctuating. So with the suggestions of the program to fluctuate the rate, the rec rate, your packages will also be changing. However, if your package is a fixed dollar amount, let's say you're offering a parking package, I don't know, park and fly for $100, it will remain the same. But iRates will offer you, suggest in some cases that you can close this and not make it non-available to increase your ADR, because it will predict a sellout, predict a high demand level, and you can afford selling only through rack and not offer any other promotions.
Okay, great, thanks. A couple more questions here. As a rule, what is the average percentage of adjusted RevPAR increase?
Average, as I mentioned also in my presentation earlier, an average percentage increase from implementing an RMS system is about 10%. Of course, it can fluctuate depending on many factors, depending on what you were doing before you started using an RMS system. If you didn't do anything at all, if you weren't fluctuating your prices, if you didn't use dynamic pricing concept at all, if you were not setting stay restrictions, if you're not managing your channels, and now you're suddenly doing all this, this will definitely put you in front of the competition, and you will see significant growth, especially during the very first year. If you were doing something, now you're employing an RMS, your growth will be maybe less significant, but it only depends on if you're really into it, if you're really very active with your revenue management, if you're using the program often, if you're very diligent with changing the prices according to the program's recommendations, if you're setting your stay restrictions as suggested, if you're managing your channels as suggested, if you're looking at all the data and making informed decisions, your growth can be also significant. So average is 10%, but again, it fluctuates, it varies case-by-case basis.
Okay, great. Next question, if a location has historical data on occupancy trends and MPI, would that be useful to review prior to implementation of this system with RoomKey?
Well, it's always useful to look at your indexes just for you, for the hotel, to have an idea where you're positioned. I don't think it should influence your decision whether to implement an RMS or not. Regardless of what your situation is, an RMS should help you grow your revenue and grow your bottom line. So it really doesn't matter where your position. iRates will help you, or any other RMS will help you if you weren't using an automated solution before.
Okay, great. This is more a question of if you decide to go ahead with setting up iRates through RoomKey, is the historical data like the programming setup done by the hotel, or is that pulled from RoomKey directly for the property, or is it a combination of both?
It's pulled from RoomKey. If you've had RoomKey PMS before, if you're not switching from one PMS to another one, then yes, it will all be done automatically, pulled from RoomKey PMS. There is not much the hotel needs to do on their part. There is just contract, I believe, that needs to be signed. But everything else is done automatically on our end and on RoomKey end.
Okay, well, wonderful. That's great for all the existing RoomKey customers. Thanks. How do you adjust for large area events that we know will be affecting occupancy on certain dates? So perhaps there's a convention, or cruise ships have pulled into town, or there's a large trade show. How does that, or a sporting event, how does that impact your occupancy on those specific dates?
That's a great question. Asked earlier, as I mentioned before, yes, it's very, occupancy should not be the indicator of the demand.
Okay.
Your revenue potential should be the indicator of demand. But that's just something I wanted to know. And again, I would recommend everybody to read the article to have a better understanding about what exactly to look at. But to answer the question is, first of all, iRates will understand that this is a strong demand day as soon as there is some pickup. So as soon as the first 5 or 7 reservations happen for that day in the future, let's say it's an event that doesn't come every year. Maybe it's something that just was announced 3 months, 4 months, 5 months from now. Reservations start happening. iRates will pick it up right away. It will understand that this is a strong demand day. It will start suggesting a price increase. So that's for the days when the pickup has already started. For the dates when there is no pickup yet, so the program doesn't know yet whether it's going to be strong demand, low demand, or how it's going to look. It hasn't applied any pattern yet. There's a way for the user to input this information in a very simple language to help the program understand that, to help the program expect a high demand season or date range. So the user can suggest that the program starts looking from the highest, in the highest demand patterns. It will start from a higher price point. I also have to mention that if these predictions, the user's predictions, don't actualize, if, for example, the event was canceled, or it's really a much lower demand event than the user thought it would be, the program will also adjust accordingly. So if the demand is lower than it was predicted, the program will start lowering the price suggestions to make sure that the price is optimal in this particular market conditions.
Okay, great, thanks. There was one question regarding the interface from RoomKey, asking if the information that RoomKey sends to iRates, and then is there a report generated to adjust the rate? And so I believe the answer to that is that you'll see the recommendations in the iRates dashboard as to what your rate should be set at, and then you would manually update those in RoomKey.
And yes, if I could also add a few words to that. So yes, in the first phase, when we don't have the two-way interface yet, which I'm sure I think we'll have the two-way pretty soon, but in the first phase, there is a way in iRates to generate a report of the accepted recommendations of anything that you will need to be changing in your RoomKey PMS. So there will be a report listing for this day you will be changing your reg price, for this day you will be setting a stay restriction, for that day you will be changing both and maybe a channel that you want to close, whatnot. So there will be a report that you can generate and you can email or print it or save it in Excel and then implement these changes in your RoomKey PMS. Once we are in the phase 2, once we have the two-way integration, there will be just a button that you will click and it will transmit all the changes to the property management system automatically.
Okay, thanks. We're in the home stretch. I've got another question or two, and you've done a great job answering all these. The next question is, how well does this, sorry, my screen just jumped here. How well does this work with long-term stays or extended stay properties?
That's a great question. Currently, iRates is better adapted, and I will be honest, it will be better. It's currently better adapted to properties, to regular stay properties. We are working currently on the algorithm that will work well with the extended stay properties, but iRates is more efficient for right now, more effective for regular hotels than
and when you consider long-term or extended stay, are you considering that to be a stay 7 days or longer?
Yes. Yeah, okay. Long extended stay properties from 7 days or longer, yeah.
Okay. The next question says, what if there is no pickup, but you know the dates and historically you sell out?
And the answer would be similar to what I just described about special events. If there is no pickup yet, there is a way for the user to tell the program that this day is expected to be a strong demand day. The program will take this information into account. It will plan the strategy according to this user input. But again, if the demand is really not as predicted, if it's lower or if it's maybe stronger than the user predicted, the program will also adjust its strategy accordingly and will make sure that the price and all the other recommendations are the most optimal in this particular market situation.
Okay, and this is the last question I have so far, unless anybody else wants to quickly type one more in. Would we query iRates through a report, or will we be alerted to the need to check a suggested period?
The way it's implemented right now, it's actually both ways. There is a report that's available that can be emailed to you on a daily basis, listing all the recommendations that you can implement. That you can, let's see, can you hear me well? It says there is some network difficulty. Yeah, okay. So there is a report. And there is also a user interface that a manager can use to log in on a daily basis or a few times a week or at least once a week that we recommend to do, at least maybe 2-3 times a week actually. The user interface that the manager will be opening to review all the data, all the recommendations, and all other information like campsite prices, booking pace, different graphs, reports, and whatnot, to make pricing decision, to make decision about what recommendations to accept and what changes to make in the program.
Okay, great. And the last question I have,
okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I thought you disappeared from
nope.
events, but looks like
I
you're
am
here. Okay, good.
The last questions are, how are group blocks affected?
That's also a very good question. First of all, iRates helps manage group blocks very efficiently because in the interface, in the iRates interface, there is a way to track group business to see what rooms are not picked up from the group. For example, if you have 50 rooms allocated to a group and only 10 of them are picked up, you have 40 rooms remaining in the group and it's already 10 days away, you know that you definitely need to contact your group contact person to make sure that they either pick up those rooms or release the rooms so you can sell them to leisure business. So first of all, iRates helps manage group business this way through the interface. Second, it does take into account group bookings when making the price recommendations for the transient, for the reg price. So if your hotel is a 100-room hotel and you just booked a 50-room group, iRates will definitely know that. It will have this information. It will adjust the price recommendation accordingly because your hotel just pretty much became twice smaller. So you have less rooms to sell. Normally, in a strong demand situation, you can afford setting a higher price in this case. So iRates will take that into account. Third, there is a group component, group module, that allows the users, the managers, to obtain a break-even price for a group request that tells the hotel at which point the group will be profitable. So if a particular day that the group request is coming for is not predicted to be a sell-out date, is not a strong demand date, the program will suggest a very low break-even price. So anything that you charge above that price, anything that you quote your group above that price, will be a profit for the hotel. So you will know that you should accept this group at any price above what's suggested in iRates. Or if it's a high demand date, the program will calculate displacement. It will tell you at which price it's worth taking this group without displacing more profitable transient business. In some cases, it will tell you that it's not even worth taking that group, or it's worth taking it but at a price that is going to be much higher, because if you displace transient business that's normally more profitable, you will be losing money. So this is the third point where where iRates helps you manage your group business as well.
Okay. Well, thanks very much, Ira. We're 2 minutes away from 11 o'clock. I want to thank everybody for those fantastic questions. Thanks for attending this morning. So we will, if you want to have a demo scheduled specifically for your property, you want to see the system in action, we'll arrange that for you. We'll also talk about pricing for your properties. You can reach us at sales@roomkeypms.com. And later today, Ira's article will be on the blog, which I think will cover off several questions that or give you more in-depth answers about some of the questions we had today. And this webinar will also be available online if you want to watch it again or send it to somebody else within your organization. So thanks very much and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.